director of Grey magazine. Hopefully you had a chance to peruse one on your seat there. And I'm thrilled to be joined here by design luminary Alexa Hampton, renowned interior designer, and recently named the creative director of The Mine. And we'll be chatting with Michelle Newberry, president of The Mine. It's a Seattle-based online home furnishings company that combines one-on-one personal concierge services with a killer selection of high-quality products. And as you've heard, they're one of the presenting sponsors of the Grey Stage this year, so thank you. We're thrilled to be partnering with them. I thought I would get through some of the requisite bio bits here to tell you a little bit about these very impressive women. Alexa Hampton, currently using her mic as sunglasses, is a perennial member of Architectural Digest's AD 100, House Beautiful's Top Designer List, and Elle Décor's A-List. She's the author of 2 critically acclaimed books, The Language of Interior Design and Decorating in Detail, and she's also a contributing columnist for the Wall Street Journal's Saturday Off-Duty section. In addition to being the creative director of The Mine, she has a growing stable of acclaimed products for the home, including fabrics and trim for Kravet, her own furniture line for Hickory Chair Company, and its sister line at Kravet, carpets for Stark Carpet, lighting for visual comfort, and a lot more. And in addition, she's delightfully funny, as I'm sure we'll all discover today. No pressure! Michelle Newberry joined The Mine, which formerly was atgstores.com, almost 6 years ago as the company's chief financial officer. She's now the company's president, and she's spearheaded several rebranding initiatives, including the company's debut as The Mine, which launched this past April. And I will say The Mine really rolls off the tongue more than atgstores.com. So
from your mouth to God's ears.
This latest transition, it includes a new product selection curated by today's leading designers, and that includes Alexa, as well as designer author Eddie Ross, which is he's The Mine's style director. So, one of the things we wanted to cover in our talk today was the concept of authenticity. And I don't know if you guys feel like you've been hearing that word a lot more recently, but I know when Grey was putting together our most recent luxury issue, in kind of interview after interview, it kept coming up almost as not just synonymous with luxury, but a better marker than sort of material or brand or really many of the other things that people think of, I think, in the past of being equated with luxury. So I would love to hear you guys each talk a little bit about what authentic design means to you.
I think from our perspective at The Mine, we really want to have a wide variety of high quality products where it doesn't have to look just a certain way, but consumers can really tailor it to not only be beautiful, but to be functional for their space and their needs. I'm a mom, I have 2 kids, I have a dog, I want beautiful pieces, but I also need it to be practical and functional, so that's what we're really trying to go after, that people can be authentic to themselves in their design and not just trying to chase a trend.
Certainly, as a decorator, ditto. You know, except for I have 3 kids and I don't care about tailoring the house to them. I'm like, you will not spill. I'm like, what do you mean you stabbed your eye on the coffee table? Did that blood leak onto the carpet? But yeah, I think the ultimate luxury is having a look that's completely your own. And so obviously that means selecting pieces that are authentic to your point of view. And certainly I am a purveyor and arranger of goods for my clients, but I don't want their place to look like my place. I want it to look like the best version of their style. And I think that when I say that, that's what I mean by authentic.
Do you guys think that that has surfaced as more important in some way? Are people more willing to sort of follow their own personal style, or kind of, you know, not be bowing to trends or however?
Everybody's different. But I do think after, you know, who of us has not seen a mid-century modern room that we adore, but we have seen such a glut of them. And there are so many resources that are globally available to us. And, you know, just as an example, say Restoration Hardware, where they've done such beautiful jobs of styling things, and, you know, we all love that look, and their nods to Belgian, you know, Axel Vervoort design, and it's so delicious. But then again, you go to your neighbor's house and they've got the same thing, and then you go to the next neighbor's house and they've got the same thing. P.S. I don't know my neighbors up in New York, but I imagine they all have the same thing. But I think that's, after a certain amount of that, like, I'll wear black every day if they can get out. But I will wear different shoes or a different necklace or a different colored lipstick. There's some things that we don't mind having uniforms for. We don't want a sofa that's like the weirdest sofa you've ever seen, but it's yours. Like, hey, I'm so crazy, look at my wacky sofa. But we have to have these things that do speak of ourselves. And the 15 years we've had of really beige, super chic, but very similar flavored interiors, I think is behind the drive to wanting to have, art be more specific to you, or have the fun pillows that you found on your travels, or, have the mix be more aggressive and more personal.
The other thing we've really noticed is that our consumer, and just in general, vintage is trending, and people that one-of-a-kind, really unique item to accentuate their space, to Alexa's point. So we do have our own vintage offering now, and we're super excited. Eddie Ross, as you mentioned, recently took a trip over to France, so we'll be offering his...
How did he get that gig?
Good negotiation. So we'll be offering some of his special finds coming up to holidays, so we're super excited about that, and really just know we work with designers. That one or two vintage piece can make all the difference in the world, so want to make sure we're able to offer that as well.
It's funny, though, that you say that vintage piece, because if you said antiques, people would vomit on you. Because there's that knee-jerk response of like, I don't want antiques, I'm a fresh and modern young old person. But vintage is cool.
Vintage is okay. So really you have one-off pieces on the mind.
We do. We have a vintage offering, which is powered by Cherish, who is one of our strategic partners, who's been awesome to work with. And then we're also working on our own offering, as I mentioned, with Eddie.
Yeah, I have more questions about that, but we'll come back to it. So one thing also, we all know good design doesn't actually have to be expensive design, and sort of that...
Who told you that?
And sort of that high-low play, I think, can really make a room. And I wondered if you guys could each give me examples from your own careers that illustrate that point, and if you have any sort of insider tricks on that, hitting that high-low, I think everyone would appreciate.
I have in my own apartment, okay, so if I take an Ambien, one of two things will happen prior to my falling asleep. Either I will order on Fresh Direct and 11 boxes full of mozzarella string cheese will arrive, as happened. And I was like, I swear I thought I bought a pack and it had 11 pieces, but it was 11 boxes. Or eBay and Etsy boxes arrive. So I have a lot of Etsy pillows, like I'll buy textiles and I'll turn them into pillows or into a tablecloth. I'll buy basalt on eBay, so I'll have like pretty basalt objet. So like I really live it, I don't just say so. But I think that having the patience to look through the offerings at various places, whether it's actual antique stores or online, that more is more resources. And so I sometimes feel like some of the greatest pieces that I use for my clients are just out of my sheer ornery persistence, that I keep looking. I'll go to page 20 on First Dibs and I'll keep looking and keep looking. And I'll certainly with textiles, if I see, like the beautiful silk velvet, tiger velvet, that we all love and covet, that's super expensive, I'll definitely look on sites for remnants to then turn into pillows. Even for my clients who might have millions of dollars to spend on something, nobody feels good about spending tens of thousands of dollars on a pillow. Maybe I feel okay about their doing it, but they don't feel good about it.
I've been very focused, the teams are very focused with the rebrand on refreshing my second home, which is our office space. And one of the really cool things we've found to be successful is to find that one anchor piece that you really want to splurge on or invest in, and then dial it down around it. In my office, we recently put this beautiful blue velvet Taylor Burke home sofa, which is beautiful and great. And also when the employees come in or team members come in with a problem, they're instantly at ease, they're more relaxed. It's easier for us to have a conversation like it's part of their home versus a corporate setting, which has been super great for us as well.
And that's interesting too, like psychological cues, the way that we watch TV shows from the 50s or 60s and they're putting plastic over their furniture. If it gets too formal, it doesn't indicate comfort. So finding ways, whether it's through the actual cost of a piece, or that it telegraphs that it's not so pristine that you can't sit on it, helps you to use your space.
And your reference to online binge shopping in the middle of the night segues nicely into something else I wanted to touch on here, which is
Drug use.
technology, kind of. So how has technology affected the design industry from your perspectives? It's sort of good and bad.
Well, I'm wiping my upper lip because these lights are super hot. So I noticed in the beginning that when it started with first dibs, people started getting nervous about what this meant for, what it was a harbinger for, for. So, and then as other websites, and I've seen lots of iterations, lots of attempts to load websites full of really the kind of stuff that I would want to buy, which can mean a lot of things. It can mean a vintage textile or a $150,000 console. People have started to worry that it's going to crush the design industry. And I am a more proactive and more optimistic person generally than someone who would say that. So I was like, instead of us all just recoiling in horror and being like, oh, the design industry is terrible, let's be a part of the conversation and let's have a hand in changing it. And if we're worried about our brick and mortars, let's do things to protect our brick and mortars. Or if we're worried about our reps at various furniture companies, let's construct ways to work with, and this is in fact why I'm involved with mine. What was appealing to me to being a participant is, find ways to, I don't want to burn the house down. I have various lines that I sell that reps sell successfully, and I want, thanks to them, I send my kids to school. So I want them to be okay, I want me to be okay, but I also do want to have an online life because I take drugs and get online. So, and my clients do too. And it's a wonderful luxury. So instead of just as a knee-jerk response resisting it, I'm trying to be a part of it to shape how we all use it, because we do all use it, whether it's for groceries or for $150,000 consoles. And sometimes you're online and it's just for inspiration, and that is another component of the mind that I'm enjoying. Is sometimes you want the thing, and you want to buy it, you want to find it. Sometimes you want to see how the thing is used, and then sometimes you just want to look at beautiful images to help you figure out, what is it I'm looking for? So that is, technology is there used to be like a cabal in the design world, and we would recognize each other like in a snooty way, like, Charlottenhof, right? Schinkel's Charlottenhof? Because you would have had to go there. You would have had to have a really great old issue of HG, or, House and Garden from way, way back, or, we'd all reference oh yeah, Grousset, that beautiful chateau, and it wasn't, these were images that were not out in the public. You'd have to have the very special, expensive book, or have gone, and now it's out there, and it's wonderful, because it's just raised the level of everybody's set of references because of websites.
Remind me of the question. I was so involved in what she was saying.
Now you have experienced what my husband experiences every day. He's like, did you get that? And then I wonder. And then he leaves.
It was about how has technology affected the design industry?
Thank you. So I think technology is definitely obviously here to stay, and we're really trying to figure out how to make it a powerful tool for our consumers, Alexa, our team, all of that. One of the challenges we found is that websites in particular are very fast to claim they have technology, and more is more, and they don't really think about quality over quantity. For example, 3D technology is something we're very focused on at the mine right now. We're working with Lowe's Innovation Labs and really feel the next best thing to touching and feeling a product is being able to interact with it, look at the texture up close, really get that powerful image of the product. We will only do 3D technology if it's the actual image of the actual product. We won't use computer generated, we won't mass produce. We feel it's super important. And when you see the quality of our items compared to some of the others, you can really tell night and day makes a difference. So I think technology is important and great, but it's also really important to take your time and get it right so that it's a powerful tool that's actually valuable to the consumers and build their confidence.
Have you guys found that with the sort of between globalization and like everyone having sort of some of the same design language that today's client is either a lot more educated or thinks they are, and how has that affected sort of how you work with clients, and maybe also something about this democratization of design in the sense that everyone can be a designer in a way. If that is,
I didn't say that.
no, but does that ever feel kind of threatening? Maybe not to you, but to, you know, is that a threat to the design industry? Where do you see yourself fitting in?
I think it has raised the bar. People are much more educated, and I think that's wonderful. I don't think there's ever a scenario in which I would equate more education equals bad. So it's great. It gives you means of communication. You share vocabulary. You can talk through imagery. You know, show somebody a picture and they'll show you another one back. Does that mean they'll become decorators and we'll all lose our jobs? I think no, because decorating, there's a lot of drudgery attached to it that is part of the price we pay to have such a great job. So I have a lot of clients who are interested in the beautiful part but don't want to do the purchase order and the CFA. I mean, hell, I don't want to do it. Which you will have something very interesting to say about, which so I don't mind existing in that beautiful aesthetic conversation with the client. I love that. I'd rather that and that they be interested and really invested in the choices that we are making as a team than just be feeding them pablum.
I think one of the things that's happening is that consumers are viewing that high-end interior design as less obtainable with all the online presence that's there right now. And what we're really trying to do at the Mine is provide this platform where designers, vendors can highlight their products, their talent in a way that doesn't dilute their brand. We're not trying to be everything to everyone. We don't have 10 million products. That's not where we want to head. But we think e-commerce can really join these people who really care about design and want access to Alexa and Eddie and all the other designers in a way that's super powerful that can both people can win together.
There's also, okay, this sounds a little salesy, but it needn't sound that way. It's just an interesting fact. So when we're first noodling around with the various things that happen on this particular website, the Mine, when I was talking about the drudgery of some of the things that we all do in design, they have this back office aspect. So like, if you're me, you don't necessarily need to use it. I've got a big staff and their lives are full of misery inflicted by me. But one of the things that they do, if one worries about the democratization of design and that it's accessible to everybody, for smaller designers or designers that don't have a huge back office, they can have it done for them on this website, which I think, like we sit around and we're like, well, what would be useful? What would be helpful? How can we make this not one size fits all? And it's funny because it's a mirror of the conversation I have with myself about my clients. How can I make them more comfortable? How can I get them involved? How can I get them to the point where they feel good about what they're choosing and that they'll buy it? How can I get it delivered to them fast? I mean, really, the conversations about design are eternal, regardless of the platform on which they list.
Maybe, Michelle, that's a good point also to speak to. I'm curious why a website like the Mine would bring in interior designers like Alexa. What is your vision for
entertainment, right?
Clearly. We started on our journey to rebrand a couple of years ago. As you mentioned, ATG stores is a mouthful. There's just a lot of stuff going on there that we took a pause and said we really want to think long and hard about what we want to be and what we want to offer and really create something unique and special in the space that doesn't exist today. So we easily could have hired consultants and checked all the boxes and gone through the rebrand process. But if we're really going to appeal to designers and appeal to people who appreciate design, what better way to reimagine your website than by hiring an actual interior designer? The other thing that's really important to us is that we have genuine partnerships and that there's a good vibe and a good buzz and we can play off each other. And we also really wanted people who genuinely care about where we're headed and are invested in making something amazing happen. We found that with Alexa. It might have been over some tequila initially, but she really cares about where this is going and how we can help her peers and her consumers shop better. So that's why going the interior designer route versus a typical rebrand route was more appealing to us.
So which goes back to your original question about authenticity. So when we were talking about it in the beginning, I am ambient notwithstanding, in many ways, their authentic customer. Whether it's I'm at home and I'm searching through the website, or my clients are, I literally had a client walk in one day to my office, a gazillionaire who had torn out the Mine ad, had no idea of my affiliation with it. She's like, I really like the look of this. And I was like, yay! But, you know, I forget what our imaginary customer age is. Do we know?
35 to 54.
Okay, I am the customer. So there is that authentic, you know, like I can afford some stuff that's custom, some stuff I've inherited from my parents or stolen. Some things I order online. I think I'm a very good, except for the fact that I'm a professional decorator, I am in so many regards a perfect example of the Mine customer. So that has a lot to do with why we wanted to talk to each other.
The customer who doesn't hesitate to tell us exactly what's on her mind anytime an email comes out or something that she doesn't like, which is great, and what we need to make sure we continue to improve and have that kind of transparent conversation, even if it can be painful at times.
You want to tell them what that was?
Would you like to?
There was an email blast, and it actually wasn't. And it was back when we were at attstores.com, and it was through a partnership, and this email blast came out, and I saw it on a Saturday morning, and I texted Michelle, who ended up like eating toast or cooking toast for her family very early in Seattle. And I was like, this email blast looks like the Valentine gift card my grandmother used to send me that would have a dollar bill inside. And
She was like, good morning, Alexa. Noted, we'll change the font. I hear you loud and clear.
Perhaps you can paint us a picture then of what sort of you see as the future of the design industry or the design profession. Sort of maybe they can be technologies that you are starting to play with, or kind of you could paint, you know, as wild, you know, far out into the future, but kind of take us through what you can imagine.
Yeah, I think from our perspective, we took a couple years and got our house in order just from product selection, services, getting all of our ducks in a row there. And now we're very focused on technology. I mentioned 3D. Next up for us will be an app where you can see those really powerful 3D images in your space before you buy. Your designer can see it in your space before you buy. And our vision at the Mine is that with the partnership of your designer or however much help you choose to have, you can reimagine your whole room, your whole living space from the comfort of your sofa without necessarily having to leave your home to do it.
And that, okay, so in the future, the website is going to be even more beautiful at year's end. And I mean, it's going to be really beautiful. I'm so excited. And as Michelle said, we're going to have an app, which I really do find that makes it easier for me when I have an app, and I don't like typing. It's so boring. And I do drink so much, and my fingers get shaky. I also think, you know, a lot of our conversations start with dreams. I am dreaming a lot about bringing more customization to the website, whether that is having custom curtains like I would make for a client, but maybe of a more, you know, reasonable price point, available in major markets, to have someone come and measure your windows. I have lots of people who I would love to work for, but who only have a room to do, and so I can't take that job on because it's, you know, sometimes doesn't make business sense for me. But like, what about that person? You know, I'm sometimes that person. Like, I just need this one room done. I'm not triggering a whole thing. So I really want us to have lots of customization. I want the furniture that we, you know, as an example, Hickory Chair has just started loading furniture onto the Mine. First time ever, and it's super exciting, and it's retail. You know, this isn't a junk site where you go to buy cast-offs. It's the real stuff. I want to have services where that piece of furniture that you pick, it's offered in so many fabrics, but then also you could have it sent somewhere to be reupholstered exactly the way you want it. All of those things, those flourishes that make it feel more personal. I think, you know, we're excited about bringing that in. When we had a dinner party one night, and it was at my house, and it was Tom Felicia and Ashley Whitaker and Nick Olson and the head of the New York School of Interior Design and friends from the mine and more. I'm sure I'm forgetting people, but because I was drinking. But we met with this Lowe's Innovation Lab man who had the phone that you could shoot at your kitchen, and it would immediately measure it in 3D, and you could pick a cabinet, and it would populate your kitchen with that cabinet for you to see. So you could see right away, like, that kitchen counter, those upper cabinets are too close to the counter. You know, like, that's too squished. So then you pick another cabinet, and it repopulates it, and it's the right one. And then you go to the mine, and you say, I'm doing tile, and they say, I mean, you know how it is when you tile a bathroom, right? And there are all those stupid components, not just the field tile that you have to get. So then you call the mine and you say, I want to do this tile, and they remind you, you have to do the bull nose. Here's your cap rail. You're going to hit a corner here. There's a corner edge base mold that you're going to have to get in addition to the base. Like, they just prompt you and figure it all out. So that's part of what we're up to. So I see that as the future, because that's the stuff that is very expensive to get wrong.
And I'm curious, when you first brought up the idea of selling vintage pieces, I was surprised because it seems sort of like, well, I don't associate that's what you guys do. And I'm curious if that is a little bit of a, well, we want to become, this is not the right term for it, but like a one-stop shop, like you come here and you can get everything, or is it a matter of building a sense of like speaking to the right people, and we know you like vintage, so we want to create, like, I guess that ties back into the authenticity question, but tell me a little bit about that.
A little bit of both. One of the things we saw right away is that as we did show houses or as we did projects, the designers always wanted that vintage piece to complement it and to make it a full room. So why not have one place where you could get everything and not have to go here for there and there for that? But we also really find that we love watching these items find the perfect home and having them journey throughout the customer experience, and to surprise and delight our customers every week with new vintage items. It's been something that's been super fun for us from an inspiration perspective as well.
Yeah, it's not all just the method of purchase. I can buy it, but I'm buying it online. It's getting things together. If you're looking at an inspirational photo of an interior that you admire, it's not all coming out of a can. It has to be of different origins.
Well, okay, so I had a fun idea, something we haven't yet tried, but I think it could be a nice addition. I thought of it as sort of lightning round, where we pulled together some product shots, and Alexa hasn't seen these selections yet, and I thought it's a nice way to get some insight into what goes on in your brain and sort of designer.
Does anybody want to know that?
For us, possibly a little bit of a mini education in how a designer thinks, and how, you know, when you see these products, maybe you could say what they make you think of, or how you'd use them in a room, kind of paint a picture for us of maybe like the layering you might do. We have, I think, something like 10, so just so you can pace yourself. And we will open this up to audience questions, so if you think of anything, don't forget, because you'll have a chance to ask. So if we can move into that other slideshow. Oh, I need a clicker. Or you could click.
Well, I would use that as a chair.
Thank you.
For dining chairs, I've always, when I got married, Bill Blass was a great friend of the family, and he did my wedding dress. And he said to me, he said, you know, brides, the whole thing about a wedding dress is the back. You have to have back interest, because as she walks down the aisle, that's what everybody's looking at, the back of the bride. And I have always thought that the same holds true for dining chairs. You know, you really look at this picture, I would cover that in a fabric, a sturdy fabric, like maybe a leather, maybe a suede, something they can take, clean up a red wine spill, or my sitting Indian style in it. That chair does not look like it could help take my hips and my feet. But then in the back is where I would put a different fabric. And that's where you can put a silk or a damask, something that you wouldn't dream of sitting on because you'll tear it and ruin it or stain it. So I like to mix two fabrics on dining chairs frequently, or else sometimes I'll even do like a tape trim up the middle of the back and down the back with nail heads or something, just to give it a little extra back interest. That's a bookcase. Am I getting everything right? Now with bookcases like this, the big thing that comes to mind, if one of my colleagues at work if I said, go get me bookcases for this job, and they brought me back bookcases and they said, this bookcase, I would remind them, this bookcase is ultimately about display because it doesn't have ends. If you try to line up books on it, it'll fall off the edges. So you're either, that means you probably, if you're going to have books on that particular bookcase, you're going to have to line them up horizontally. And they're really only going to exist in that middle bay, which means the rest is for objects. I also, for whatever reason, in the middle bay of many bookcases, even ones that are totally proper bookcases that can contain everything, I like to alternate, horizontal, vertical. And I am more of a book girl than I am an object and bookcase girl. I like reading and I like my friends, my books. Nothing makes a room feel warmer, besides the people in it, than tons of real books that the person is reading or has read. That is one of my urns for Maitland Smith. I'm a completely casual person who walks around my house barefoot and in my husband's boxer shorts, and a concert tee, and yet I have very formal rooms, and I love souvenirs of the Grand Tour, and what in the 18th and 19th century a young gentleman usually would be sent to finish his education on a trip, a grand tour of Europe, England and the continent, and would get souvenirs. So would get marble urns and tazas and obelisks and little models of ancient classicist forms. And and as a decorator, my God, I go through these things like you wouldn't believe. How many times have we all seen bowls filled with like apples? They're vital.
How big is this object?
This one is about that is the sofa. That is, I love the geometry of that sofa. I love those repeating lines. Another thing that I think about when I think about upholstery in any given room is what has skirts and what has legs. So if I was going to use this sofa, I could see that in front of an adorable table, like on one side, and then chairs around the rest of it in the corner of the room. But I would make sure, if it were in a room, that there were companion pieces that were skirted. Because if you get sofas on legs, tables on legs, chairs on legs, it becomes a sea of legs. So I always have in my mind, like, what quantity of skirting versus legs is going to occur. That is a very cool dresser. I really like the layout of the wood on the chevron veneer. I like that it's got this forced asymmetry. I think all decorators we can't help ourselves. We love pairs, but sometimes you get to a point where like, this room is Noah's Ark and it's all my fault. So having a few pieces that are specifically meant to be off-center can be very powerful. You can have moments of forced asymmetry that make the rest of the room look better as a result. I also think that kind of wood, a lot of people have an aversion, oh my God, where is this going? An aversion to, that was in our crossword today, a verse, an aversion to brown furniture. They look at big brown pieces and it bums out a lot of people. So I think what's cool about this is it's a lighter color. It definitely is suggestive of organic material because you can see the grain and the variation. So I think it would speak to a customer or buyer or decorator that is both interested in having some wood but doesn't want to fall into the big brown polemic. That's one of my lamps. It's amazing. That lamp will make you younger, prettier, and richer. No, it's, I love playing with silhouette, I love playing with things, I love subverting things that are, the usual, but at the same time, I'm always leery of, you want to be interesting, but you want to be so innovative that you're the person who did the three-legged chair, which consequently doesn't sit upright. So I like riffs on things. So this is just a typical, almost like a gourd-shaped lamp, but it's got the base is scalloped in itself, so you get some pretty shadow lines, and it plays with volume. Beautiful mirror, I know that mirror, that is from Bunny Williams. I can see in my mind's eye the project that she first used it in, and I'm a huge Bunny Williams fan. I love obviously using mirrors in over console tables and entries. I love them. I once had a client who followed Feng Shui, and he told me that if you put a mirror opposite the front door, money will flow out of your house. And God damn it, I cannot get that out of my head, and I will not put that in a client's house for fear that that will happen. So I'll put it somewhere else. I'll do a pair of them. Mirrors are great as pairs, especially if they're facing a window, so that if you're in a dining room and your back is to the window, it's great to be not assaulted, but met with a pair of mirrors that then show you the light behind you. I also like in bathrooms to sometimes mirror a whole wall and then hang a mirror on top of it in front of the sink, just because it's just a nice layer and it's a whole lot of mirror and it breaks it up and makes it interesting. At this angle, I was like, what the hell? That is a very cool handle. Handles are interesting. They too have a hard time being interesting. I mean, what can you do to a handle to make it interesting? That sounds like a cool abacus feel. The most important test for any piece of hardware is how does it feel in your hand? And that actually looks like it might feel good. You might get a little massage out of that one. But I don't buy hardware, or rather, I would buy one of these and take it to the client to have them see, because that is, you could fall in love with the shape, but if your knuckles are hitting it, or it's maybe like a half an inch too short for your hands, I have huge man hands. It's got to be beautiful, but it's got to do its job. I also like with hardware to mix it up. So in a kitchen, I might do a cup pull at the first rung of drawers. Then I might do knobs or locks for little kids to keep them out of there. And then at the top I'll do knobs because it's easier to get if you're reaching up a knob. So that also tells the person who's using the whatever it is, whatever the drawer or the pull, it telegraphs to them what each thing is for. Obviously if you put a knob on drawers and cabinets, you don't always know what's what. Like, wait, is that the dishwasher or is that the garbage? A faucet. I'm just getting them all right. This is obviously a kitchen faucet to my mind because it has that nice gooseneck that's really tall, so you can get a colander. By the way, anything I say about a kitchen is alleged. I know nothing of what happens in those rooms. But this looks like you'd have space to put under it, and that also a nice hand grip. And that's an interesting choice in metal. I think just recently, people are being much more open to different metals than ever before. It used to be just polished nickel or chrome. That was that in the kitchen. But now I'm seeing more brass. I'm seeing rose gold or rose platinum or rose something. It's rose. And more blacky finish as well. That is a very pretty carpet. I am a big believer in carpet sitting on the furniture sitting on the rugs. So. And this is a big divide, probably. It's probably a very controversial thing to say in the design world. Are you a furniture on the carpet or furniture off the carpet? But I will put half of the sofa legs on the carpet and half off. Because I feel like instead of pulling the pieces apart, it integrates them. But sometimes, say with the carpet like that, is that a pillow? As I'm looking at the bottom, that's a pillow. Oh, well, then I'm not going to tell you my carpet secrets. God damn you.
Let's hear the carpet secrets. I like where yeah, we could just call it a carpet. It's fine.
So that is, Michelle's head was hiding the pillowness at the bottom. The tell is the bottom. Okay, well, back to the carpets. Damn, I got one wrong. A pillow of all things. I'll never hold my head up high again. So back to the carpet thing. If you get a standard size, like an 8x10 or blah, 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 very frequently it's too small for your seating area. So what I do in that situation is I will do maybe a sisal that's exactly the size I want for the room, and then scatter these rugs on top of them. And that makes it easier for me to contend with, like, that rug that you really love, but it's slightly too small. Because I'll do anything to avoid the bath mattification of a carpet. That's just bad. And I've got no time for round rugs, no time at all. Okay, so should we talk about pillows or no?
Yeah. I mean, do you guys want to hear about pillows? I mean, out of your mouth,
Yes.
it's fascinating.
Like, love pillows. I am female. I have the chromosomes. We all know that men like fewer pillows than women. In my household, I broke no pillow arguments. Everybody gets the pillows they get, and I don't care if they're too many, and they all have to be taken off the bed and then put back on in the morning. I don't karate chop them. I go sideways. And then I pat it. Good boy. I like pillows that have different trims, so if I do a cordon tape in the seams of the back pillows, then I will maybe apply a tape trim to the front of the two front pillows or do a fringe or whatever. I also, if I'm doing maybe a big white sofa, and I've got a beautiful white pillow fabric and a beautiful blue and white pillow fabric, I'll put the darker one in the back so that it's A, B, A, like light, dark, light, because if you do the two lights, they can tend to wash each other out. I have so many thoughts about pillows. Yeah.
Will we get more tips in your book? Do you cover the pillow
Am I writing another book now?
tutorials?
I mean, I got some pillow talk in my books. And yes, I will probably be writing another book all about pillows. Yeah.
You heard it here first. Well, let's
And last.
let's take some audience questions if you guys have any. Otherwise, we could hear more about pillows and.
We can also talk about Michelle's daughter and her use of the mind, like only because I love the personal stories about when a person, especially a civilian, does it themselves.
Proud to be a civilian, I have to say. Yeah, I'll quickly share. My daughter Nicole just became a teenager. I want to knock on something. And so far so good, but we really wanted to get her enough in space that she would feel comfortable having her friends come over and that ultimately we can repurpose for a guest room or whatever when she will in fact go to college, which is a guarantee. But we have a concierge service at the mine, and not to sound salesy, but I wanted to try it myself to make sure as a consumer I really understood the experience. Rather than getting stuck in phone trees or repeating myself, I had one person, Jessica, knew our project, knew our timeline. By the end of it, knew Nicole's favorite color, and was just there at every step in the process to make sure if something went sideways, we were proactive, we were handling it, and just took the stress out of redoing a whole entire room, including construction. That for me, as a mom, a working mom, it just made it super easy and seamless. And my teenager was happy, so win-win across the board, right?
Were you incognito? Oh, sorry. Were you incognito? Like, did Jessica know who she was helping?
There was no hiding. Jessica knew who she was talking to, but I can assure you, everyone gets the same level of service.
No, I wouldn't be worried about Jessica. I'd be worried about Nicole. I mean, who can make their teenage child happy? I mean, when we were redoing our house, my kids aren't teenagers yet, but I do not involve them in. I'm like, what's your favorite color? And I just made sure the rooms were that color. That was it. That's all they got. And I kid you not, I've had lots of meetings with 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-year-olds with my clients. But I do not endorse their participation. When they get a job and earn money, they can chat.
We did let her pick a couple of things. We felt it was the right thing to do.
Maybe the next book could be a parenting book.
I don't think so. Maybe she can write that one.
I don't think so.
Okay, audience questions. Yes. Oh, here's a mic coming through.
Hi. Yeah, so one of the things that clients are asking for, and I've used the mine quite a bit and enjoyed it, are mood boards. And it's still kind of the Pinterest, picture here, picture there. Doesn't really come out in a really designy way. Is the mine moving towards maybe having a mood board option that we can create nice?
You can shoot your Pinterest board to the mine,
Oh, really?
and they'll shop for you from it.
Oh, I have no idea.
Crazy.
So is there a mood board we can share with clients back and forth?
Sure, our trend and design team can absolutely help build that for you. It's not exactly perfect yet, but work in progress, and happy to work with any tool you currently have. Anything we can do to make designers' life easier is what we're all about.
And actually, ideas like that, if there are things that we haven't done, like, that is a cool thing to hear. Tell us what you need.
Yeah, they actually sent my daughter Nicole a mood board, and they just went back and forth on that when we did her room, and it worked out really well.
Other question over here?
I have two questions. Is that okay? Okay, one for
Depends if they're
Michelle
good.
and one for Alexa. Michelle, I was wondering if you're familiar with the Sustainable Furnishings Council, and I think like the vintage aspect is a great sustainable story, and I was just wondering if the mine has a story or tells a story somewhere on the website. And then for Alexa, I watched a really interesting trend presentation about, speaking of technology, how people are feeling such overload with it. So there's a trend moving into simplifying spaces. So I just wanted to hear your thoughts about that.
So we are based in Seattle and very focused on earth-friendly, want to be as green as we can be both in the office with our products. So I'm not familiar with that specific one, but would love to hear more about it after this. We are very focused on recycling where we can, making sure products are made with the best type of quality and materials so that everyone can feel really good about having them in their home. And vintage is a great way for us to start dipping our toe in that recycling world as well.
Also, when there are returns that are not within the purview of, like there was nothing wrong with the piece. We have a program with Habitat for Humanity and with
Yeah, so primarily Habitat's been a great partner for us, and of course with all the recent events, wanted to make sure we could help as much as we can, and we're very proud to be able to commit to another $1 million for next year. Products that to Alexa's point are perfectly good, but for whatever reason the consumer just didn't quite like it, it wasn't quite right. We don't want to tell them to throw it away or take it back to a vendor who's not really going to use it. We have a great partnership with Habitat. They will pay to sit themselves, and then they can repurpose it for one of their projects, which has been great.
So when you say simplify, you mean the client wanting a simpler experience with their decorator? Or do you mean that they want less technology in their interior? Or do you mean an aesthetic? Give me more.
So based on this trend presentation, it was more about the aesthetic in the space and colors being softer and fewer colors. Because I was looking at the slides, and I love the rooms and all the color and textures and patterns, but I'm just curious, based
What
on
are you
that
trying
trend.
to say about my work, lady?
I love it.
No, I think, and I think trends, as you really think about them, are not true. I mean, yes, you can say the mid-century modern has been a trend for the past 15 years, that's irrefutable. But like smaller snapshots of trends, I find hard to believe because a lot of them are the result of publications. And as you know, like say I were to give you an interior, say a bunch of people gave you interiors, you don't always put them, in the next issue. You keep them together and then they get, when a certain project gets published, there's somebody curating the entire book for that month. And they make them flow together in such a way so that maybe they can say it's a color story, or maybe they can say it's, there is meaning imposed upon the assembling of the interiors that you will see in a magazine. And sometimes I will have a project of mine shown, and it'll be in a trend issue, but that project was completed 2 years earlier. It's only being published now. Or maybe 3 years, because it took me a year to get everything in and photograph it, and then I sent it in, and then they held it, and then so in that way, it can be false. And I would never encourage my clients to follow a trend unless it came to them very naturally, because you don't want to force them into something that's, what are they going to do? Paint their walls every 4 weeks because there's a new trend? Or I wish they would, because Mama could make bank. But so in that way, I hesitate when anything's a trend. But and you have to keep in mind, like I have an office, but it's not 100 people. We're 11 people. So I'm not always a great litmus test for a global movement. But I have found for my clients recently, color has been coming way more into it. And I've never, in the 19 years I've run the company and however many years I've been working there, have I ever seen such a roar back for color as I've been seeing in these last few years. And it used to make me nervous because you have to commit to it, and it could be expensive if you don't like it later. But people are like, I want me my color.
Another question? Okay.
Just kind of on the first point that she mentioned about sustainability, you know, in this landscape of globalization where, you know, there's access to everything from around the world at the click of a button, how important from both perspectives is like critical regionalism in terms of like working with local artisans that are exhibiting here, or even, you know, digging deeper into like native art and folk art that are fundamentally like dying trades. And, you know, just as an advent of globalization and technology, we're losing a lot of craftsmanship, we're losing a lot of traditional artwork. So where does both of your practices fall within that?
We're highly interested in finding those partners, just like you mentioned, that are ready and willing to be e-commerce enabled, that we can help, so we can preserve it and share out those amazing things. I mentioned we don't want to be everything to everyone. The more custom, unique, special stories we can tell to really romance the customers and keep these things alive, we are highly focused on it, especially as part of our exclusive line.
After 2008, I had so many of my amazing vendors disappear because they just didn't have enough money coming in to live, so they had to change their trade. So I'm always looking for ways to keep vendors alive. So whether that's promoting them publicly or talking to my designer friends and trying to get them to use them, our life's blood is in having these incredible craftspeople flourishing and getting paid to do it. It's obviously because their remuneration is insufficient that those trades die out. So I'm constantly, that's also with artists, trying to cultivate them not as you know, not to exploit my clients to keep them alive, but like how can we find something really special for you, which goes back to the, again, overarching topic of conversation is authenticity. So if you can have that connection in a local region and support a local craftsman, like that is so fabulous. And it's so meaningful, and it does ultimately make a place have spirit and love and beauty. So, you know, I'm all for it. And if we can crack that code as we sit drinking tequila and eating chips about how we can do it, like it'd be so cool if we can find that perfect way to do it on a website. You know, so that because we are global. Wouldn't it be great if those very specific geographical trades and crafts were available to somebody really far away? And we've got to figure out the right, perfect way to do that, because then we can't keep it.
I think we better wrap up here, but we'll hang out up front for a little bit now if anyone wants to come say hi or ask your own question.
If anyone would like to stare into this light bulb.
Thank you for joining us, and thank you, Michelle and Alexa, for being here. Come back at 2:30. We have a really fun program called Pitch Tank, where we have people had submitted online ideas, concepts, prototypes for products and other sort of objects, design objects, concepts, and the editors picked our favorite 5 that we thought were most intriguing, and they're going to be up in the hot seat here, pitching their idea in 2 minutes, answering to a panel of judges, and then we're going to be having the judges vote as well as the audience vote on the Pitch Tank winner. And actually, last year's Pitch Tank winner has a really great exhibit space. It's Chop Value. So yeah, it's really interesting project. So come on back at 2:30. Thank you for being here and enjoying the show. Thank you guys.
Thank you.